Welcome to the Sports Business Leaders Podcast, where we have founders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in the sports business economy to talk about their thought leadership lane and give you a little bit of an insight as to what they're working on, teach you about things going on that you can be a better innovator and disruptor for yourself. And I'm super excited about this episode. I think this is episode 8. We have the CMO of Rithmm, James Santore. James Santore has been a cornerstone of the community. And real quick, little tee up about Rithmm. It's an AI sports betting app. It's founded by MIT educated individuals, so you don't have to be an absolute mathematician to have an edge in the gaming and the sports betting space. But Rithmm is the AI sports betting app for player props and game predictions backed by AI models. Rithmm helps you make smarter and faster betting decisions. Help me in welcoming to the show, James Santore. How are you doing today?
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you being on, James. So to get things started, we're about 7 years into sports betting being outside of Nevada at this point. So can you tell me about the origin story of Rithmm and the why and how behind what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like a little background too on how I got into this because I think it's important because I started at 76 Capital in 2019, about a year after PASPA was overturned, right at the epicenter of sports betting in Delaware, PA, New Jersey. And it's always fascinated me to see where this industry started and where it's going. And I've been able to be working in it really since PASPA was overturned pretty much in 2019. And the amount of change that's happened in the industry is just insane, right? So I've been at a few stops from the investment side to the sportsbook operator side. And then I was helping startups in the space. And then Rithmm became a client of mine when I was doing some outsourced work. And what really just changed my perspective on where the industry was going about Rithmm was the ability to really help people. I think that's one thing that this industry is full of people that are trying to take advantage of gamblers. And when I saw that there was an app that was truly trying to give users the power of all the data and the analytics out there without them even really knowing that, I was like, this could be a disruptor. So, what's really impressive about Rithmm is, again, it's a team of MIT grads, data scientists, and quants that basically said, hey, if there's a bunch of professional sports bettors using data and math and algorithms to be better at betting, why can't that be done for a user? So they tested this while at MIT. This is the founders I'm talking about to see if it was true. And it was true. So there was like, there's two options. You either use that algorithm and bet for yourself and become a professional bettor, which is a tough lifestyle. You're bouncing around from country to country and, sportsbook to sportsbook trying to get your plays down. Or you could figure out a way to make it something that's accessible by the general public. And that's where they chose to go. Very difficult process, but basically, while at MIT at grad school, they made a public-facing app that allows you to build your own custom sports betting models, get predictions backed by AI and advanced analytics, and make better decisions. And that's where we've been. And in the span of 2+ years, the team's been able to go from idea to consumer-facing app, and our growth has been phenomenal, and we continue to evolve. But what we do that's different than the rest of the apps out there is instead of just giving trends, we give predictive models and analytics, and not just telling you what's happened in the past, but predicting what's going to happen in the future. So it's really cool to see where we are, and we're meeting the industry exactly where it is right now.
Yeah, that's great, James. It's really been cool to I've heard about you. It was actually our friend Sal Filardi from Replay Coaching and from Profluence Capital who teed up an intro, and I already knew about you. Didn't know a whole lot about Rithmm, and I've learned so much about the sports betting and gaming industry. And it's really cool that, first of all, as a LaSalle baseball player to end up in 76 Capital very quickly after graduating, like I'm sure most athletes would dream to like have that as a part of their career. But for you to then go on to see what's going on with Rithmm, as you said, like a consultant or whatever you were doing in the early days, and then come on as their CMO, you really have like watched this evolution in the journey. And let's talk about that a little bit about how like a startup like Rithmm has to be nimble and should be validating things. And I'm sure you've seen the focus and direction, not really pivot, you have to be careful with that word, but you've seen it evolve. Maybe you can take us through some of that, like that's evolution that you've witnessed and how you've seen Rhythm navigate it itself, and now how you're playing a role in that navigation.
Yeah, and I think as a startup, that is the most important thing. And one of the most important things is being nimble, understanding where the market is, and being willing and open to change. I think a lot of, especially when I was at 76 Capital, and we saw so many companies on a daily basis that were looking to raise capital, in the sports and tech space. A lot of them get very stuck in what their original idea is. Now, I respect that. Like, I understand why that is, but at the same time, to really grow a business, you need to understand if you're adhering to the right market. And I think with Rhythm, one of the things that we thought was that everybody wanted the ability to use the most advanced data, right? Like the average person is going to want to build custom models, have access to data that really only the top 1% of bettors have. And to a degree, that's just not true because I think people want to make quick decisions. And sometimes, as far as the personalization, like there's just people that want to be told what to do, which is very frustrating as a data company at times. But instead of getting angry about that, it's how do we still be able to use our data, use our product to help those types of people just as much as the people who want to sit there for 30 minutes a day and really dive into the data. So we've been able to just change the product and make it better for the average person just as much as the advanced person to help them make better decisions. And I think because of one, like looking at the market, understanding who we want our users to be, and really our goal of helping as many sports bettors as possible, we're not only helping the betting community, we're helping the lineups like daily fantasy community. We have people who use Rhythm for pick'em games and fantasy football. Really, it's just like, how can we help as many people as possible? That has been the biggest change for us is like realizing, and this is where I really always tip my cap to the founders and say, it was hard when you have to realize that not everybody wants custom betting models because some people don't know what that is, and that's okay. But what's even better is when they get to use those betting models without even knowing it because you've made the app so good and intuitive that people can still use the power of that. And that's what I think has been a huge turning point for Rhythm. And again, heading into next year, some of the other things that we're building right now, there's not a single person that's betting or using daily fantasy or lineups that shouldn't be using our tool because our projections are that good and our app is becoming more and more fun to use to where it feels exciting to open it every single day.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff, James. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but I thought obviously really interesting that you're giving the top 1% of data to the masses. And as somebody who dabbles in it a little bit with sports betting, it's really interesting to see that and see over the past few years the evolution of the whole industry as a whole. So with that being said, what do you see are going to be some of the big trends in 2025 and even beyond?
Yeah, as daily fantasy and underdog, prize picks, better, all of those types of apps continue to grow at a crazy rate. And again, one of the reasons they're growing is because they don't have to adhere to traditional sports betting laws and regulations. That's why California, Texas, Florida, they have a wealth of daily fantasy apps like that because they don't have legal sports betting. So I expect that to continue to grow in 2025. And with the DFS and the lineups being more prevalent, those types of betting platforms are very good for social media and sports media in general. And I think what we're going to continue to see is an integration of data and betting and fantasy data into mainstream media. I think something that has always bothered me as a diehard sports fan and somebody that watches and consumes sports content is when, obviously sports betting's become legal, they've integrated it into Sports Center, they've integrated into all pretty much every sports TV show. You never know why an analyst is making a decision. Why are they telling you to take Sixers -7? Because they feel like it? Because they're telling hundreds of thousands of people something that they're going to go use without any sort of knowledge of why. To me, I think that's where in 2025 you're going to start to see a tool like Rhythm be used by those analysts, those people on TV, those people in games, because we're giving them an actual way to make a quick, educated decision that then could be followed and understood by their audience. If Stephen A. Smith gives me a bunch of sports betting picks right now, I'm like, I love you, Stephen A., but I also don't know. I don't. You're not a professional gambler, bro. I don't know why you're giving me these picks. Him having a rhythm model and him saying and tracing back to why he's giving out those predictions and the historical data behind that, that changes the entire way people are viewing ESPN, Fox Sports, like whatever it is. And to me, that is creating a much more tied together ecosystem of betting, of content, of data. And I think that's what's going to again help some of these shows that have been struggling in this modern sports, economy.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it's really like data validation in the long term. So I mean, yeah, really, really cool stuff.
It's trust. I think there's a lack of trust and transparency in this industry, and it's been that way as long as betting has been legal. I mean, I'm in South Philly. That's where I live, and I mean, there's been gambling going on in South Philly since the '60s, and probably before that with bookies and people like that. There's a lot of internet bookies out there. There's a lot of internet tipsters and touts, and you never know why they're giving out their betting picks. You never understand what the rationale is, but with the thing with us, there's no person hiding, there's no lack of transparency. We're literally giving people data to make those decisions. And I think that's again the way things need to go for transparency to happen in sports betting.
Yeah, I really like that attitude, James, from a company, from how you're communicating it. I mean, this is why I think, how we really met you is like through this community we're building. And if you start off with anything, an app, a product, a service business, a community, and your goal is to really authentically help people and be different, I think people, it just signals to them. And then if the product is good, like you said, if it's that good, if it's that predictive, and if it's fun, that really resonated with me too, then and as long as you just keep building and keep going, it's gonna work out, right? So a lot has resonated with me. Um, we would probably usually close the show with folks, but there's so much that I think and you've seen, and so many things that Rhythm has done. I think we have time for one more question. So especially because you were on the 76 Capital side for a bit in your career, and for the audience, dream career, like model individual who played sports in college, pitcher at LaSalle, figured out how to get into a VC group and a sports book after college, and now you're in a C-suite role in a startup. Like, first of all, there's a career question to model there. But I think that some of this audience for SBL would really love to learn some of the insights from the raise journey from Rhythm. I mean, Rhythm has raised, I think, a couple different chunks of capital, somewhere between, the press releases are all over, but somewhere between like 2 and 3 million. So, James, I don't know if you want to share some insights about, investor preparedness strategy for founders, or some of the things, maybe not giving away the secret sauce about how you guys raise, but any sort of insights you can give to early stage sports founders about raising money, being ready, some of the landmines to avoid, because I think there's some of that. So anything you want to speak to that, I think would be really valuable, James.
Yeah, it was really cool to be on this side of it in early 2024, right? I think being in 76 Capital, being a part of the VC side of things was so like I honestly, and it's funny, I say this to people sometimes when they ask me about 76 Capital. Before joining a VC, I really didn't know the full spectrum of what a VC was. It's just something I don't know if I ever paid attention to, or I, just missed it in school, whatever it might be. But it wasn't until I was there I realized really that we were giving startups hope and a path forward. And I think thinking about it that way, it really made my job fun because as the chief of staff, I was helping all of our startups basically grow to a point of, whether it be raising another round, whether it be trying to get acquired. And then I also got to work with not only our own portfolio, but I would talk to entrepreneurs and founders every single day who were fundraising, right? And I think understanding what resonated with me as a person helping to make decisions of, are we going to invest in these companies? Are we going to move them forward to the rest of our team? Then being on the flip side of it at Rhythm, really, I think what it did was it made me be more like realistic, right? I think when I was going with the team, helping making our investment deck, helping make our plan of action, I think the biggest thing it always comes back to is why, right? There's no reason just to raise. And I think a lot of companies get stuck in we need to raise, we need to raise, we need more money, we need this and that. The first question I always asked on the investment side was, what's the use of funds? If you can't answer that question in a few sentences or a few seconds, then there's a problem. Because if you're going to raise, you need to know exactly what that money's going towards. And I think for Rhythm, that was one of the coolest things. It was because we were so early on. We really had our major growth or our first spurt of growth in January. We started raising a few weeks later because we were like, this showed that we have something. I need a marketing budget. We need more of a bigger, we need a bigger team. We need more to just continue to show that what we've built in this concept can be huge. And that's what we kind of raised on was not only the product, not only the growth, not in the team, but the future, right? Like you raise on what you think the company can be built to. And when we went to find the investors, when we went to again give our pitches, that was exactly the messaging. And the other thing along with again having that story, having that use of funds, being so passionate about where we could go was we vetted our potential investors just as much as they vetted us, if not more. And I think it's like when you're raising capital, the people that are investing in you are the people you're going to be talking with a lot and not going to be just, chit chatting with them. They're going to be the ones that you are having some real conversations, good or bad. So making sure that you're understanding the people that you're going to be working with that are going to be having equity in your company, it's so important because as we've had the rest of the year since we've raised, there's been great calls with investors, but there's been, struggle calls with investors when things aren't going the way we want to. But the one thing that we've always been able to do is come out better from every single meeting we have with any of our investors because we are aligned. So just for anybody that's looking to raise, know who you're going to be getting money from and think about in the worst case situation, are they people that are going to be able to sit there, hear you out and help you get better? Because if the answer is no, they're not worth your money. So it's been such a good journey. I can't tell you 2024 has been the crash course MBA I've never had. I was done with baseball after I was there. I was like, I need to get back into I need to get into the real world. And it's like I'm happy I waited to get this because the amount that I've learned, and I'm lucky to have had multiple different perspectives in sports and tech and investment, but the fundraising journey was a fun one, and I have a feeling I'm going to get back into that again real soon.
Yeah, that's great, James. I mean, it's great to hear anybody's perspective looking back on raising capital in startup world alone, but not to mention sports tech. And again, for you to be, see it from both sides. And I really like how you had clarity on the perspective when you're in Rhythm and looking back, and you pulled those valuable insights from the 76 Capital days. So that's really big. I mean, why, what's your why in raising, what's the use of funds, vetting investors. I really like how you close that when times get tough. Like if you're not aligned, you guys are dead, right? If an investor gets upset, it can really be out of control because you want to recapitalize those investors when you raise more money. You want them to show back up anyway, and even just that alone can be a red flag. So
You want them to be your biggest champions, right? You want
exactly.
them. My favorite thing is that a lot of our investors will literally hit me up directly or ping me in out of the blue and saying, "Hey, I just saw this about Rhythm. You guys are crushing it. Keep it up." Like those little things. It's like a coach that sees you working your ass off in practice and gives you that extra little push of, "I see what you're doing. Keep it up, and good things will happen." And I think again, I mean, I'm especially again, I'm the marketing guy. Of course, I like that type of stuff. But like, I think anybody when you're in the mud and raising a startup or building a startup, like you need positive. You need champions. And I think again, if your investors can also be your biggest champions and provide you knowledge, then you've got great investors. And that is not easy to find.
Yeah, and one of the really cool things that I heard you say that resonated with me, especially as it pertains to raising money, has to do with when you said learn, evolve, and improve. And I really think, especially as you have multiple rounds, and just like Jake said, especially if you might have an investor that's involved in multiple rounds, I think it's also cool, like you were saying, to have people that are seeing you along the way and watching the growth of the company. So yeah, I mean, it's really cool to not only see your growth, but also impressive to hear your perspective when it comes to 76 Capital and then applying all that information to the like a real case study with Rhythm right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And one other tidbit on that point is I went to G2E, which is the biggest sports betting conference. This is 2023. I went, it's in October, it's in Vegas. And I went before we really had a public facing product. And it was a very daunting task to go into a place where I had a lot of connections from my previous time in sports betting. But I went on behalf of Rhythm, right? I was there trying to spread the word about what we were doing without really having the product there yet. And it was tough to be basically trying to go be, I was like, you know, going up to people, hey, have you heard of Rhythm yet? You want to work with us? Here's what we're doing. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, that sounds pretty cool, but like, I don't know if it could be done. And being able to go back this year in 2024 with the progress and everything that we've done, it was very fun to be at that conference this year after it was a tough thing to go there without having a ton to say. It was really me trying to, again, set the stage for our growth so that people would remember, "Oh, I heard of Rhythm. I remember that James dude, the Italian kid with long hair rolling around, G2E talking about this app." But then people started seeing it, so that when you go back to a conference like this, when you go back and try to make partnerships, they'll never forget you. And I think it's for a lot of companies, they need to have the confidence, and I'm only using my journey because it was a good use case, but, like, I had confidence that we'd be able to build something that people would really value, and especially not just consumers, but people in this industry. And I went at it was not easy to go walk around a conference with hundreds of people there that are industry veterans without anything really to show besides the belief in a concept. But that has helped us a ton in getting validation because the same things I said in 2023 are the same things I was able to go back and show in 2024. So if you're a startup, and again, you have to believe in what you're doing to be successful in general, get out of your comfort zone and go do things like that. Set the stage, tell people what's going to happen and do it, and they'll never forget you. And that's not a me thing, that's a Rhythm thing. And it could be your company too if you have that perspective. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable to be successful with startups because you're going to be uncomfortable 95% of the time. And if you're ever too comfortable, you should probably see why you're comfortable and make sure it's going to be sustainable, but it's probably not.
I love that, James. Thanks so much for all the insights today. I think we learned a lot from you. I think we got a nice landscape for the betting industry for 2025, and we'll be cheering you on. You're one of the major gaming betting thought leaders here in Philly and really the whole northeastern seaboard. From I know your team is in Boston, so thanks again for being on the show. Really enjoyed having you. You've been a major part of this movement that's going on with not only the sports business leaders meetups, but now this content on the podcast. So thanks again, James, and we'll be cheering you along in 2025, my man.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and thank you guys for everything you're doing for especially in the Philly community, right? Like this thought leadership, just hearing some from faces that are people that you know in the area and creating community is so important. So I love what you guys are doing and excited for 2025 for everything you'll be doing as well.
Absolutely. All right, over and out. Thanks for listening to the show, Sports Business Leaders, and we'll see you in another episode.